Cloud. Okay, so we will officially call the Coachella Valley Water Legislative Committee meeting to order. Today is Thursday, July 28th at 4:04. For the record, I will just note that we have both Director Estrada and Director Aguilar present, so it makes the quorum. And we have various staff. I won't go through everybody on the line. I will open up public comment if we have any members of the public online that would like to speak on anything that is not on the agenda. Please use the raise hand feature at this time and we will call upon you. I don't see anybody. Okay, so we will go ahead then and jump into discussion items. We'll start with the state items and Victoria, go ahead, take it away.
Great, thank you, Sylvia. Clicked on unmute a couple times there, wasn't working. So for our state update, I have something that I'll circulate to the group afterwards as well. But the state is in recess for the month of July and they come back on Monday, August 1st. And then it's really like a final like sprint, 31 days before the legislative session ends on August 31st. And so when they return on Monday, they're really going to be focused on bills within the Appropriations Committee. And those bills face a deadline of August 12th to be passed out of appropriations. If they do not pass out of appropriations, those bills would be dead for the year, and anything that passes, like as mentioned, continues until August 31st, where they must pass and be sent to the governor for signature, or they're dead for the year. Also, in part of your agenda packet, you would have seen a priority bill list. As mentioned, there has been no activity for the month of July. And so we do have a few bills that we are bringing forth today just for discussion and update status. So before I move into any of those, are there any questions to start?
Victoria, I have just a general comment. I don't recall the bills that I specifically went over with our lobbyist in Sacramento, Chris Kahn. But when I was up there after the SAFER advisory group meeting, the SAFER group has also kind of started tracking bills that are related to the SAFER program or might have some sort of impact to the SAFER program. And you can find that that list of bills that they're tracking. There's they kind of break them down in categories: administrative, CEQA, drinking water, funding bonds, fees, water quality, groundwater management. So there's a number of different categories that they kind of look at. So I went over some of these bills with Chris, and I know that there was some that he was able to verify that that he hadn't kind of picked up on his radar, and he had mentioned that he was going to add them to our priority list. And so just wanted to ask if that was something that you were able to touch on with him, or did that happen or no?
Okay, thank you. We did discuss the bills, and I'll need to circle back with you on those, being that he's unable to attend today's meeting. I think a couple of them are probably going to be covered in that summary I'm going to circulate after the meeting. And then if not, that you and I can possibly touch base on them. I know that if I recall, a lot of them were very specific to SAFER and didn't have like overall like CVWD implications. There was one in particular, and I don't remember offhand its number, but it is one that we did want to bring forward to committee. So as August proceeds, and as mentioned, is kind of like a little bit of a sprint. I don't know if perhaps we'll need like a special meeting in the middle of the month if there's something that comes up on the bill front, that if there's like a last minute push, whether for support or opposition, we can bring that up at that time.
Yeah, and it was a while since I met with them, so I don't recall the specific bills, but just, I want to make a note of it, that for you to be aware and for him to be aware, for us to be aware that there is a list that Safer as a whole is tracking. We are, participants in Safer, and so I think it's important for us to be aware of what those are.
Certainly, and I mean, we are supportive of the Safer goal and mission and its intent.
Thank you.
Where can I find those? Where can I find that list?
I'm gonna add it to the chat here. I'll add it to the
Okay,
chat.
perfect.
Great. So with that, we'll move into SB 222, which is by Senator Dodd, and it's the Low Income Water Rate Assistance Program. As Sylvia mentioned before, we all got started. I'll start with a little bit of a staff report on the overall bill, where Aqua stands, the current status of the bill, and then we do have a presentation today by Leadership Council, who is a co-sponsor of the bill on SB 222. So part of your agenda materials was the Aqua analysis on the bill, and as well as the presentation, and then the bill text as amended 6/23, right? So in June of 23rd. I have heard today from Aqua that they've been having good and fruitful conversations with the senator and his office. And on the 1st, when they're back in session, they're introducing further amendments to the bill. So this bill is definitely got a lot of moving pieces to it still. And within some of that, we're still trying to, well, I'll preface by saying that SB 222's intent, which is to create this low income water rate assistance program, is a good one. And it's one that we support, and it's one that we can get behind. However, on the logistics end of it, that is where Aqua, CMUA, and a lot of the other industry organizations are trying to work through those semantics with the senator. One of those, aside from the policy issue, is also identifying a funding source for the bill, for the program. There are some implementation concerns for just agencies across the state, what that means for the agency on a staff level. Do we need to get another full-time employee, or is service able to handle this? I don't want to go over the new amendments just yet, because they haven't really been introduced. I didn't circulate those beforehand. As I said, this is all happening and moving today. It's also not, I mean, I know that the governor's administration has been working with the senator on this particular bill. If you'll recall, we did talk about this bill August of last year, and it was a 2-year bill, and it was on suspense on the inactive file for a good portion of the year, and it got reactivated in June when they made those amendments. And so within this 1-month period, as I mentioned, it's a sprint. There's still a lot of moving pieces, so it's uncertain, if we'll see it move within the last month of session. With that,
Can I add something, Victoria, before Natalie jumps on?
yeah, I was about to ask if we could take board questions prior to presentation.
Okay, perfect. And I just thank you for that. I wanted to make sure that we had a chance to ask questions, so that maybe Natalie in the presentation, she could also think about maybe she was able to answer those. I thought I had heard that everything you mentioned sounds accurate, that there was a lot of momentum up in Sacramento, that it felt like this was a bill that in one way or another, in some sort of fashion, was going to make it through the governor's desk. I had heard that the governor's office also had an interest in participating in the language of the bill. And so their office, I think, was engaged with the authors to try to get to some agreements from the perspective of the governor's office. And one of the things that also I think I had heard was that at least the bill that I had originally seen the language, I think kind of calls out for the department that would handle the funds and the program. And I think the governor maybe felt that it was better for it to be handled by the State Water Resources Control Board. And to that extent, I wanted to just know if that's true, if that's really where it's going.
Sure.
And then on top of that, I do think that the funding is a concern. Even I think from a safer program perspective, it seems like even from the safer group, there's always these new needs and reasons why we should create more programs. But at the same time, when you don't have an identified funding source, it continues to tap into maybe the funding for a program that's already kind of overprescribed in a way. And so we do share those concerns, even just from a safer group where we know that we have funding priorities, and so I'm interested to hear about the funding question.
Sure. And thank you for that question. I know I mentioned it in the overview and I actually didn't kind of dive into that. So initially, backtracking on the history of the bill, it was stated that the Water Board would house the program. And at that time last year, Aqua was in an oppose unless amended position because that was one of their biggest issues with the bill. They would have preferred to see it in the Department of Community Services and Development, which currently houses the LIRA program, which is also a low-income rate assistance program. So the author was amenable and they made that amendment last year. And Aqua then moved from oppose unless amended to a watch. With the new amendments that came out the last couple months or so, the program, that department was changed back to the Water Board. And that is also one of the reasons why Aqua then with their state legislative committee moved along with a lot of the issues that we're talking about right now, but they moved back from a watch to oppose unless amended. So that is Aqua's current position, is oppose unless amended. But as mentioned, they are working very closely with the author. They do have another state legislative committee meeting coming up on August 5th. And this bill is going to be up for discussion once again to see if the state leg committee wants to stay in an oppose unless amended or move to a watch, just discuss their position. But currently the program would be housed under the Water Board, not CSD, which has the experience in handling some of these low income assistance programs.
Thank you.
Victoria, I have a couple questions, please. So the funding issue, of course, is huge, and it seems that needs to be really dealt with up front in order for any momentum to be given on this program. But did we take a position as a water district on this bill, either in its current form or its prior form, in support? Didn't we send a letter in support of this, or was that a different bill?
I believe that was a different bill. I think we've always just been neutral and just have been watching this bill.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's where we stand
Okay.
currently. I'm not necessarily suggesting that we adopt a position. It's at the pleasure of this committee. There are new amendments out. It's fast moving. So
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. And then two other quick points. One is that it seemed like in the Aqua analysis that you provided us,
Mhm.
that there is a set aside for administrative funds
Mhm.
to cover administration of the program, which I think is really important, and would want to see that retained at some level. So I think that was really important to acknowledge in the report. And then my last question is, do you know if the League of California Cities has taken a position on this? in one form or another? And if not, can we find out?
Yeah, I am uncertain about the League of California Cities, so I can circle back with you on that and let you know. Regarding the administrative costs, actually one of the proposed amendments that is going to be released next week sees an increase of that from 3% to 5%, and that's responsive to some of the asks from Aqua and CMUA. So that's good
Yeah,
to
that's
help
great.
on the admin side.
Good. All right. Thank you very much.
Kessler, did you have any other follow-ups?
No, thank you.
Yep, my pleasure. Great. So with that, Natalie, I'm assuming you will be giving the presentation. I will hand it over to you. Thank you.
Would you like me to share my screen?
Sylvia, yes?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Sorry, I was muted. I was saying yes and no.
No worries. Here, let me just. Y'all see this?
Yes.
And can everyone hear me okay?
Not really.
Your volume's a little low again, Natalie. I don't know what you did the first time it worked.
I don't know what's wrong with my computer. I'm so sorry. Can y'all hear me now? I can also try to project as best as I can.
Yeah, I think when you get a little closer, it's a little better too.
Okay. Okay. Well, hi, everyone. My name's Natalie. I'm a water policy coordinator for Leadership Council. I'm based in our Eastern Coachella Valley office, but I also support our work in the San Joaquin Valley, as well as our statewide campaigns. So thank you for the time to talk to y'all today about SB 222. Leadership Council has been working on SB 222 since last year, and a lot sooner than that, this has been a priority for a lot of the communities we work with, and hoping to get statewide support to get this through to the finish line. And I'll be able to address some of the questions that were brought up before as well. So some of this might be repetitive, but what is 222? SB 222 would establish a statewide low-income water rate assistance program to help provide water affordability assistance for both drinking water and wastewater services to low-income ratepayers experiencing economic hardship. Similar to other established utility assistance programs, SB 222 would establish a safety net for homes that find themselves unable to pay their water and sewer bills. And why do we need this bill? So water and sewer rates consistently outpace inflation, as demonstrated by families paying 45% more per month for drinking water services in 2015 than in 2017. And this was part of the State Water Board's AB 401 report. 34% of California households, roughly about 13 million people, earn less than 200% of the federal poverty level, or roughly $50,000 per family. About 1.6 million, or 12% of Californians, can't pay for their water bills actively, and 500,000 Californians lost drinking water due to shutoffs during the pandemic. Most public water and wastewater systems also face legal and financial barriers to establishing robust affordability programs. So some of the details of how the program is currently in print. So yes, the State Water Resource Control Board is going to develop guidelines and fund oversight, but this will be done in consultation with an advisory group. That advisory group will be composed of a number of stakeholders, including public water systems, sewer systems, technical assistance providers, local agencies, nonprofits, and representatives from the public, including but not limited to the low-income residents who live in multifamily homes, as well as residents served by tribal water systems. So who would qualify? Low-income residential households that receive water and wastewater bills would be eligible. Eligible systems would include tribal water systems that choose to participate, and any low-income residential household will be eligible regardless of immigration status. In terms of program administration, so the implementing agency will be the State Water Resource Control Board. They will move to automatically enroll ratepayers who are enrolled in federal and state assistance programs, such as food stamps, WIC, different programs like that. And it would establish a universal statewide program to be offered by all community water systems and sewer systems. So the state water board will authorize the creation of pilot projects that improve affordability for residential households through efficiency investments and programs that provide benefits to residents of mobile home parks and multifamily housing. And they will also have the discretion regarding whether to offer advance payments and what terms and conditions apply. So a little example of how the program could work for a water system. So again, automatic enrollment would be a part of the first rounds of the program. So for example, based on current enrollment in the CARE program. In the alternative application process is another option for those not enrolled in existing programs. Systems could also be given water or sewer systems can give credits to eligible customer accounts. The state water board will refund local spending on low income rate assistance plus administrative costs as well. And right now we have on their grader of 3%, but we, based on suggestions that we have received, that number is very likely to move to 5%. And the state water board will also once again mention that they'll have the discretion to offer advance payment. Currently, these are the list of supporters, which I would like to highlight that the California Water Association is actually now a listed supporter as well. Thank you, and I will open it up for questions.
Natalie, can you go back to the list of supporters?
Yeah,
So we
of
can
course.
do that for a minute?
Yeah. And as mentioned, we have received additional feedback from Aqua, and we're working through that feedback as we speak. And there are quite a few amends that we'll be taking.
Okay, thank you. I got it. Thank you.
I'm happy if y'all have any questions. I'm happy to talk through some of the amends that we're likely to accept based on some of the feedback we've got from both CMUA and Aqua, if y'all have any specific questions.
Natalie, I just, going back to the details, you mentioned that the State Water Board will develop guidelines and fund oversight. And you mentioned the advisory group, and I'm wondering if the advisory group is the exact advisory group as part of SAFER, or is it does the bill intend to establish a new advisory group?
The bill intends to establish a new advisory group.
Thank you. And then I don't know if you covered it in your presentation or if that's what you're going to roll into. You mentioned that you might have some answers for some of the questions we asked. One of them, I think that one of the most important, at least for me, and I think I heard Director Aguilar also bring it up, was the budget and the source of the funding. Yeah, I think that's kind of, at least for me, one of the things that I would want to hear more about.
Yeah. So we have had very positive conversations with both the legislature and the governor's office on getting the first 2 years of the program funded through a $330 million allocation from what's still being negotiated in the climate package. So that would give us time to get the program up and running while we work on a long-term source to be able to fund this program continuously.
That was 230 million each year, or for 2 years?
330 million for the first 2 years of the program.
Okay.
I would just, sorry, Victoria, I would just mention that doesn't really seem like a lot of money to cover the need. So I'm wondering, how would they propose to allocate that?
Well, what I guess a question to your question, why is it that 330 doesn't feel like enough? Do you feel like we're underestimating? Like,
Yeah, I just feel based on the statistics that you actually presented, that there's a greater demand for that kind of subsidy than that would fund statewide. It just seems like there's a huge need that's not being met. And that just seems like it's, I mean, it's a good start, and it's a great place to kick it off. But it just seems like I would hope that at some point that's not going to be the number that's going to be settled on.
Yeah.
Right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, definitely. And the 330 is really just a starting point for those first 2 years of the program. We arrived at that number based on results from the arrearage program, the report that I mentioned. So this would really just establish the program, and moving forward, it would have to be reassessed how much funding would be needed to.
Yeah,
make it
yeah.
consistent.
Okay. Thanks.
And then maybe for comparison, because I think that's a good point, trying to figure out whether the funding is enough or extremely low. And one of the thoughts that came to my mind was centered around the amount of money that was made available for the arrearage program across the state, which we got some of that money, Director Aguilar. We got about maybe 250,000 to pay for unpaid bills during the moratorium for the water shutoffs.
Mhm.
And so do either you, Natalie, or Victoria have a sense of how much money was allocated for that, or how much ended up being used on the water side? I think that the state was able to pay the entire 100% request on the water side to where it actually started spilling into the wastewater.
Yeah,
So
that's
so
precisely what happened.
yeah, so do you guys have a sense of what that number was that the state ended up kind of providing funding for?
I can actually pull that up really
Yeah,
I'm
for
just-
the arrearage funding.
Yeah,
Yeah, so we received 219,000. And that was for the domestic water.
yeah. My question though is at a
Statewide.
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 Yeah, because I'm trying to get a sense if it was anywhere near,
I don't think it was all used.
It was,
it got spilled over to wastewater.
Yeah,
yeah, there was a total allocation from federal funding of 985 million by the state legislature. And yeah, I don't think all of that was used.
Okay, that's like three times more.
Yeah.
Times more.
It's significant.
So,
and that money was very, very easy for customers to get because they didn't need to apply. It just got applied to their bills.
Mm.
That's right. And I think, Natalie, you and I had this conversation prior to this meeting was about, I think for me personally, I'm always open to participating in anything that provides reliefs, that provides support to struggling families. This would be a way to do it. I think where I start getting a little bit concerned is when it just becomes very, very bureaucratic, very hard to access the funds. It creates a lot of administrative hurdles for staff, and just it takes a long time to get to where you want to get at. And so I think I mentioned to you the easy aspect of the arrearage program, where it was pretty easy to roll out. And I think I mentioned, to the extent that it kind of follows a similar model, I don't see why we wouldn't jump all over that. I think for me, it's, what are really the details related to how we, the amount of extra admin tasks that we would need to take on, reporting, or, and then I mentioned that we also have the South to Other program where we provide, I think, Scott, we're providing what, like at least $200,000 a year, maybe $100,000 a year.
Yeah, it's less than 100. During the pandemic, we're helping customers with quite a bit more. But that has slowed down now. It's a very easy process, and we have a third-party administrator, United Way, who handles that. We really, so they take care of all that.
And I think, Scott, although we might only have folks take up maybe the 90,000 to 80,000, I think we appropriate a set amount of dollars each year. I don't know if that's
Yes.
100, 200, I believe, I thought it was 200.
I think it's, let me
It might
check. I
not,
think we.
it might not all be used, but it's there.
Yeah, and you know, this board of CVWD Board of Directors has been very generous with their Help to Others program. They provided funding whenever needed. They increased it. I don't know if you know this, but our program, the Help to Others program, was designed to cover 100% of the fixed charge for an entire year. So for a customer who uses 5 units of water a month, which is a lot of water, they pay less than $5 a month for that water. So.
Yeah, and so I just want to let staff and Director Aguilar know that in my conversations with Natalie, I did point to kind of the success of the arrearage program. It was easy for us to implement. It seemed pretty basic to get the money out to people without much administrative burden. Also mentioned that we have the Help to Others program where we make the money available. We do have the United Way kind of take care of that for us. So it seems like for us to roll out that money is easy and it goes into the hands pretty easily, while the United Way kind of does everything that they need to do. So to the extent, Natalie, that you can help us kind of push that message up to Sacramento and say, look, there are already kind of some models that are working on the ground, and we need to kind of we don't need to kind of reinvent the wheel or try to create a program that has all these things and you need to jump through. I think we need to point to programs that we know work, and we know of some examples. So I at this point I still don't know how it would kind of roll out. I think I'm hearing that no one knows. I mean, is that the answer? The details aren't really there yet.
No one knows. It's more that we don't have the final language yet because there are still details that are being worked through. But a quick response to 2 of the points you brought up. One of the upsides of having the program in the state water board is that they have that arrearage model, which would be a very, very helpful model to be able to implement this program as quickly as possible. 2, the purpose of that advisory group is precisely the point that you brought up, that we don't need to recreate the wheel. There are already public water systems that are well equipped to guide a program like this. We just now want to make sure that can be modeled across the state. And then on the point of the United Way program, that the point of automatically enrolling is precisely because there are some water systems, that have already a basis to hit the ground running. All they need is the funding itself. But yeah, the full details are not out yet. We are still negotiating language. Once we have settled final negotiations on the funding, we'll definitely have a much better understanding of how the program can roll out.
If I may interject too, we've talked about this a couple times, which is the funding source. I mean, that's industry-wide, up and down the state. That is of huge concern. I understand that there could be potential funding for 2 years, but what if there's no future funding after that, right? That creates caution amongst the water industry. In the past, the senator himself has introduced various bills regarding potential water tax, things of that nature. And so just, Director Aguilar, Vice President Estrada, points of concern are just identifying a reliable funding source and not relying solely on perhaps budget appropriations or budget surpluses, right, in good years versus not good years.
Sure. Got it.
Oh, and we also share that concern, and that is definitely a lot of the thought these last few months has been precisely on that point, and we are working to try to address that the best we can through the language.
And as you kind of work to finalize the bill, I think the pitch from my perspective, since I'm in charge of or responsible for administering our Help to Others program and various other programs that we've had, is that just so all the screening is done, before it gets here, because we wouldn't want to be in a position where we're screening for, the eligibility requirements. When customers come in to apply for service, we don't even ask them for a driver's license or social security numbers. We don't ask for anything by design, because we don't want to have that personally identifying information. And so if I could just make that pitch, that be done. And I know they're talking about getting the information through other sources, but just so we don't have to do that at the local agency level, because that would be difficult.
Mhm.
That's,
No, thank you. I'm gonna make a note of all the suggestions that y'all gave and bring it back to like our folks working on language.
okay.
And then Scott, Victoria, I just, I guess I heard that we don't know whether this would move within the time now that we have left at the legislation, or whether it would turn into a bill that kind of spills over. But I certainly would want to track this. I'd like Natalie to let us know in whatever way she, whether it's calling us, sending us emails, and working with Victoria to kind of let us know if there's a way that we can be helpful, a way that we can provide feedback, and for opportunities for us to provide language that would make us feel more comfortable to take a support position. I certainly am supportive even now, with the understanding that there's still maybe some nuances that need to be worked out. I think I'm not, if the governor's saying, we're committed to providing the funding for at least 2 years, and then we can hash out where the rest of the funding comes after that, that I'm okay with that. I know that there's a lot of money out there, there's a surplus. And if this is one of the things that he wants to kind of focus on with the surplus, that's fine with me. To the extent that it's not taken from another pot of money that might be as equally important. But I think in philosophically, I'm aligned with the goal, and we certainly have a lot of need for it in the eastern parts of the Coachella Valley. Other parts of the Coachella Valley, we have a lot of disadvantaged communities across the valley. And but I think, Natalie, if you could help us, if you could help us kind of navigate or help us understand how it is that we can be helpful, I would welcome that. I just, and I encourage staff also to kind of think how we might be able to get to a support position to kind of, be kind of proactive in providing feedback as to what our particular issues might be, not necessarily just kind of go with the Aqua, let's not just rely on Aqua's position, because as we know, Aqua's made up of a lot of different agencies, all of which have their own unique priorities and issues. And so I think, we need to look at it from a perspective of how this might be beneficial to us.
And Natalie, if you ever wanted to get together to talk about, our programs, we also work with the county on different programs. And I think from the board perspective, they're very supportive of taking care of customers. And so I'm always willing to sit down and talk with you and just provide you kind of my perspective.
Thank you. And like I said, we're currently working on responding to some of the concerns that were raised by CMUA and Aqua, hoping those will be made public soon. I know y'all don't meet like regularly, so as soon as they're made public, I'm more than happy to send that amended language over to y'all. And also happy to set up a separate meeting if there's anything that was amended that y'all would like to talk through, or would like us to clarify. That way we also don't have to wait till like there's a ledge committee meeting.
Right.
We're happy to make the time to discuss some of the amendments we made. And we are very hopeful that some of the amendments that we're working through will satisfy both CMUA and Aqua.
Thanks, Natalie, and Vice President Estrada too. Your comments are heard. I just want to reassure both you and Director Aguilar that we don't always 100% align with Aqua. We are also guided by our board adopted legislative platform. And so, but that's why it was important for us today too, to also have SB 222 on the agenda, so we can really look at it from a holistic approach and its implications to the district. But certainly, I mean, that's why we're not coming to you to look at adopting a position today. I think just keeping it neutral, just watching it. I am part of the Aqua working group, working on the amendments for this bill. So we are definitely, working in tandem and making sure that, we have a seat at the table regarding these potential amendments.
Victoria, I would just add to Vice President Estrada's comments that, I mean, there are always going to be details on this legislation to be worked out. And of course, funding I know is critical, but the sooner we can get to a support position on this, the more comfortable I would be. I mean, inflation is going to be at 10% shortly. Incomes are not rising as quickly as other costs are. Our unemployment rates, as you know, in our disadvantaged communities are significantly higher than the 3.9% number that, keeps getting tossed around. So, it's frustrating for me. And I realize a lot of this is new to me, but it's frustrating that this bill has taken so long to get to this point. And if they can't, knock it out in the next legislative period before the end of August, this is going to have to hold for at least another year. And that would be really painful to these families. So as soon as we can get the information from Natalie and from, your working group and whomever else we need to make a decision, I would really encourage we do that as quickly as possible.
Certainly. And the intent of the bill and the program, I think, as the district as a whole, we can get behind. We just want to make sure that, whatever programs put in place is also put in place in perpetuity. Because we'd hate for a program to be introduced to just,
Right.
not be there.
Yeah.
But certainly, I mean, Natalie, we'll be in touch. Like you said, you're working with Aqua CMUA, but yeah, let's stay connected. And like I said, if we need to have a special legislative committee meeting in the middle of August, that's perhaps something we can consider depending on, how the discussion and amendments are going.
Thank you.
And definitely, happy to have follow-up conversations because we do believe having support from CBWD could, be monumental. There are a lot of things that y'all do very well that, we struggle to get other districts to do. So we think it would actually be, a pretty big win to even just have a district like CBWD support something like this.
Great. Thank you, Natalie, for your presentation. If no other comments on SB 222, I'll move on to SB 1157. Okay. Great. So SB 1157 is the Hertzberg bill that looks at indoor residential use and actually lowering the indoor residential use standards. This is something, I'm just laughing considering what I just said, that we don't always align with Aqua, but this is something that we did join Aqua's coalition on, which is an oppose unless amended. For a variety of different reasons that I know we've covered, but more specifically is in 2018, there was another set of bills, AB 1668 and SB 606, that really looked at creating new water efficiency standards, as well as how to best make conservation a California way of life. And so at that time, they adopted an existing standard, a 2025, a 2030, or a current standard, a 2025 standard, and a 2030 standard. And what this bill looks to do is to reduce those even further than what was adopted and negotiated at that time in 2018. And so just a quick status on the bill, this one has made it to the assembly. We are, working with Aqua. We're working on reaching out to our local assembly members and letting them know where, as a district, we align with. And so some of those issues, aside from the repercussions to the amount of indoor water use that could have on our wastewater and recycled water supply. You know, there is a disadvantaged community component to this that those communities would be more impacted by this. You know, we were just talking at our board meeting this past Tuesday, that 55 gallon makes up that tier 1 per person, and it's estimated at a 4-person household. Those numbers, you know, the 2030 standard is 47 gallons per person, and the 2030 is 42. So you can imagine that that would kick individuals into higher tiers quicker and make it very difficult for not only residents to comply, but as an agency, but also there has been a lot of indoor conservation efforts the last, you know, 5 to 7 years. And it's going to be a lot tougher to target passive ways to increase indoor conservation, right? It's indoor, it's not outdoor. So as I said, this one's moving pretty hot and heavy this next month. So we're working on meeting with Assemblymember Garcia and Assemblymember Mays, and also putting out our own letter in addition to Aqua's opposition letter, oppose unless amended letter, excuse me. I welcome any questions we might have on 1157.
I have no questions.
No questions.
Great, thank you. So the next two, AB 778 and AB 710, were both sponsored by Assemblymember Eduardo Garcia, both of which we did take support positions with last spring. And so AB 778 would require all California state-owned or state-run institutions that purchase agricultural food products to implement necessary practices to achieve targets for the purchase of products grown or produced within the state. And so that bill is actually still moving through the process, and it's going to be heard in the Senate Appropriations Committee this upcoming Monday on August 1st. The counterpart to that bill, AB 710, this would require a grower or producer selling agricultural products to use like a form developed by the California Food and Agricultural Department to demonstrate that they're in compliance with all California environmental, health, and labor laws. Unfortunately, that bill fell one vote short in committee, and it will not be moving. So that bill is dead, for lack of a better word, but AB 778 is continuing to move. And Chris Kahn is, as you know, our state lobbyist. He has previously testified on both bills, and my understanding is that he'll be present for the Appropriations Committee meeting on Monday.
Victoria, quick question. I know that AB 710 is a bill that's been up in Sacramento for a few years in some way or another.
Mhm.
And I'm happy to see that AB 778, I think you said, looks like it's moving forward. But to the extent of 710, do you know if that's if folks are going to try to go for another shot at it next year?
I don't know. We haven't heard anything from the Assembly Member's office, but you know, as mentioned, we as a district did take a position of support. We could always ask and see if that's something he plans on reintroducing.
Okay, thank you.
And Director Aguilar, did you have any questions?
I do not. Thank you, Victoria.
My pleasure. So AB 2142, this one just a very you know, quick and brief update. This is an Aqua sponsored bill. It reauthorizes the making turf rebates exempt under California income tax. This was a measure, it was previously in place. It sunsetted a couple of years ago. So this would just reauthorize that. So as you know, this is, we are in support. We're part of their coalition for this, especially as we're making a huge push as a district for all of our turf rebate incentives. This would be a very good bill to have that move forward. So this is currently also in the Senate Appropriations Committee. So as mentioned, the deadline for that to get out of committee is August 12th. So hopefully we see that get out of committee and then on the floor for a vote.
Good.
AB 101 is it did not pass out of policy committee. So this bill is also dead for the year, but this bill would have amended CEQA to require mitigation to compensate for adverse air or water quality impacts in disadvantaged communities, and require all public agencies implementing CEQA to give consideration to policies of environmental justice by ensuring fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people, races, cultures, incomes, and national origins. This would have had, major expansions to CEQA, but would have been quite costly in terms of projects. And so that, as mentioned, did not pass out of policy committee. Are there any questions on that, or did you have any general state legislative questions that I can answer?
Not for me.
Not for me, sorry, thank you.
Great, my pleasure. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Anna Schwab, and she'll be able to go through the federal items.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. It is great to be here with you. And we have a few items today going on the federal side. You do have the written report, and I'm going to touch on just a few things within that. But if you have any questions on that directly, please let me know. Specifically, one of the big things I'm going to just start with is in the written report, you'll see that Senator Padilla and Congressman McNerney introduced companion bills in the House and Senate that are related to Water Efficiency, Conservation, and Sustainability Act. And you'll forgive me, I have a second screen with some notes that I'd like to just share what parts of the bill are. So the bill will have a water efficiency and conservation grant program, which will authorize $25 million a year for grants to entities, including local governments, as well as water and energy utilities, that will carry out water efficiency programs for purchase, installation, or use of efficient fixtures, appliances, and landscaping. It will also provide 50% of grants for entities that experience drought conditions designated as D2, which is severe drought, or were under a governor declared drought emergency within 3 years preceding grant award. That one is specific for California to give it priority points in some of the grant programming. And then another part requires that 40% of the funds go towards low-income households and disadvantaged communities. That is a big goal of Congress. It has also been a big goal of the environmental justice push that the administration has been making this term. Another section of the bill will be a sustainable water loss control program, which will authorize $20 million a year for grants and technical assistance for public water systems to be able to do annual audit and establish a water loss control program. And we know that California already requires an urban water suppliers to submit annual water loss audits, but this will also allow some other provisioning as well as we go through that. And then there will also be a grant for water efficient plumbing code adoption. So we'll authorize $20 million a year for with authority to adopt plumbing codes that meet or exceed the US and international water use and efficiency standards. So some of that, again, what they're trying to do with parts of this bill is, obviously highlight some of the issues that we care about in the Coachella Valley, care about in California, also try to get some other members of the Senate to try to support the bill as well. In order to have it go through, they need that support from others. So I will pause there, Victoria, if you don't mind, because I'd like to just take questions during each piece, if that's okay. So wanted to ask if there are any questions with that. This is in line with the legislative priorities that the board did approve for this Congress. And we are recommending that the district support this bill and provide a letter of support for both the senator, the congressman, and the House and Senate committees, respectively, sharing that support and why the support would be beneficial for the district and urging its passage. So I'm going to pause and see if there are any questions, if that's okay.
No, I thank you. I don't have a question, but it seems to me that a lot of support would be completely reasonable.
Thank you, Director Aguilar. So I'm going to move on. You'll see, I'm not going to go through each part of the written report, but one of the big things that I do want to talk about is just where things are with appropriations. We know that the federal fiscal year is coming up on September 30th, and technically they should be halfway, or more through their appropriations process and have bills through and signed to the president by September 30th. That deadline is not going to be met by Congress this year. The House did pass what's called a mini bus. There are 12 appropriations bills, and the mini bus contained 6. Within those 6 were 2 that we care greatly about: energy and water, and the interior and environment bill, and I believe agriculture as well, if I'm not mistaken. And I don't have it in front of me, but I can pull it up if there are questions. But on that, very specifically important is that in the Senate, we don't have a pathway forward yet. We do know that Chairman Leahy and Ranking Member Shelby do want to see an appropriations bill process pass through before a new Congress begins on January 3rd of next year, as both of them are retiring. One important note, though, of positive and something we can be excited about is that the FY23 congressionally directed spending community project funding request that Congressman Ruiz supported for the district for this year was put through in the final bill that went to the Senate. So in terms of how we're feeling in terms of consideration, we feel pretty good about it as of right now, and are hoping to see some steps. Actually, we should be seeing some steps from the Senate in the next week or so on their own versions of the bill and where our appropriation requests lie there. So we will keep you updated. We'll let staff know immediately as soon as we know, and update you at the next legislative committee meeting how it progressed. I'm going to pause there on appropriations and see if there are any questions.
No questions from me.
How much again, Anna, was the set aside?
Give me 2 seconds and I can tell you. It was, so we got different requests put forward by each. If I'm not mistaken, the amounts are different. Give me 2 seconds. So in the House, it was,
I believe it was 3.5 million from Congressman Ruiz.
yep, 3.5 from Ruiz. And it was, I have it all right here, so bear with me 1 second.
Sure.
And there we go. So then from Senator Padilla was, pressed too many buttons, it got excited. Let's see. Oh, now I have the pinwheel. Give it 1 second. I don't think
Okay.
it was too different from the request from Congressman Ruiz.
Okay.
I have the numbers. if you
Victor, I don't know if you, yeah, that'd be great.
Yes, okay.
Oh, there we go. Senate Padilla was 4.5 million.
Okay.
And so, and they usually will defer and Senator Feinstein put forward 2.25. So we will probably land somewhere between Senator Feinstein and Congressman Ruiz's request. I would be surprised to see if we go up near Senator Padilla's request. But again, as soon as we have some more information, we will update staff and be sure to give you a comprehensive update at the next legislative committee meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely. Are there any other questions on the appropriations process or the status of the funding request?
No.
Okay, great. So one of the things, drought update, we've been expecting the House to put forward a drought package that would try to address some of the short-term and long-term conditions of drought. The House does have a package, HR 5118. It's a wildfire and drought package. It does have provisions in it that are both short-term mitigation as well as long-term mitigation measures, including additional funding for the Title 16 program, which CVWD has applied for and are awaiting the grant results of that. It's an important program that we've utilize, it does have other provisions and other programs and funding for other programs that we support and we utilize regularly as a district. And so that would be great. However, I put an asterisk on that because there is not a pathway forward for it right now in the Senate. It would need 60 votes, and I will get here now, which is last night, the Senate released what is now a draft of their reconciliation bill. You'll hear in the news a lot, conversations between Senator Manchin and Leader Schumer, and you've been hearing about this for the better part of a year now, and it has led to this moment. They have released a bill that is, the goal is to address the rising cost of inflation. It does have some climate change provisions in it, mostly energy provisions. The part of the Build Back Better plan that we were hoping were included was the water provision. There were some water sections that were in that previous bill. That did not get included, unfortunately. So one of the bills and big priorities of the district is the Water Conservation Rebate Tax Parity Act. There is both a bill in the House and the Senate. Right now, that is needing a tax vehicle. Unfortunately, bills like on tax measures in Congress, they have to actually originate in the House, even though we have a Senate companion. It does have to, tax measures have to originate in the House, and we do have to have a tax vehicle for it to be attached to. So hoping before the end of the year, we do see another one, especially given, Director Aguilar, as you noted, some of the economic circumstances we find ourselves in right now, there will likely be a tax package, hopefully addressing a number of provisions nationwide that everyone is concerned about. So again, that is another one we will continue to work on with our delegation and continue to update staff, and we'll provide you another comprehensive update at the next legislative committee meeting with any changes or progress we've seen on that. Are there any questions on that?
Not for me.
So on the PFAS side, I feel like I kind of flew through this, so sorry. And we can go back if there's any questions on anything you guys think of later. But on the PFAS side, not too much to update. We did see in the National Defense Authorization Act, a bill that we normally don't pay too much attention to detail on, except for the fact that in the last many years, they've been trying to include different PFAS provisions outside of the Department of Defense. One of the ones they did include this year was a bill from Congressman Pappas that does have some requirements for the EPA to set PFAS MCL levels, which we're expecting this fall anyways. So again, fortunately, they didn't do anything too, I'll say too forward on PFAS in the NDAA this time around. They did try to keep it mostly germane to what the bill was about. But we are going to continue to see PFAS be added into most types of bills. Anytime they can be touching it, they will. And we want to make sure we are continuing to have conversations and paying attention to where we can see liability, have the conversation on liability and where we can see protections for the district exist on PFAS. The other one that I forgot to include on our list, and forgive me, is just Buy America, Build America. We've been working really closely with staff to ensure that district's priorities and needs are being expressed to the federal agencies. The Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, also known as the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, required a comprehensive overhaul of Buy America, Build America for all federal agencies. So there's uniformity across them all. And what they are doing now is implementing that. It was effective May 14th, 2022. We are seeing that kind of hit some areas differently. One of the ones initially, for instance, was our FY22 community project funding. And they EPA has now, after many conversations, put out a waiver request to the Office of Management and Budget in the White House to have those FY22 requests not included. Big reason for that we saw was, we had expressed to them that we would have to go back and change planning, and we also had to use these funds incredibly quickly given the terms and conditions of the dollars. So some of it is just a timing thing. It's not whether or not it is something we would like to support. It's a timing of when the dollars have to get out and the practicality of being able to get it out when they're asking us to, and change some of the materials and constructions. So that's just another area that we've been working really closely with everyone on. And again, I'm sorry, I feel like I kind of flew through
Uh-oh.
You froze?
Yeah, kinda.
Oh no.
She went so fast, she burned it up.
But I'll connect with her, but are there any questions on either PFAS drought or the Buy America, Build America?
No.
Okay, great. And just so to clarify, the FY22 appropriations that we received, that was the 2.7 million that Congressman Ruiz put forward last year. That would be utilized towards the Valley View Consolidation Project. And then the project that we applied for this year for FY23 is also for the Valley View Consolidation Project. And that's the one that we talked about, where we don't know where that amount is landing just yet.
What's the amount that Anna said was going to fall between 2.5 and 3.5?
Yeah, 2.25 and 3.5.
Okay. Okay, great.
I'm back. Sorry about that, everybody.
All good. They didn't have any questions.
Oh, okay, then never mind. No, I'm just kidding.
Awesome. I know we, with the new agenda system, I guess we removed other, but are there any other items that we wanted to discuss federally or state that's top of mind? No, okay.
Not for me, but I would just reiterate Vice President Estrada's point that if we need a special meeting during the month of August, I can make myself available for it. So
Understood.
Me as well. I'm here for the rest of the year.
Great. Thank you both for that. Yeah, we'll definitely coordinate through Sylvia if needed. If not, actually, we were planning to cancel the August meeting and maybe try to meet mid-September, just because with, the last day of session being August 31st, if we met August 25th, there's still a lot of things happening and moving that we felt there wouldn't be a full recap of the month of August. So we'll keep you looped in onto what that next meeting date might be, but we'll definitely be working with Sylvia should we need to schedule something mid-month.
Okay.
Okay. So for adjournment, great.
If we don't have anything else, no other comments, then we'll go ahead and adjourn at 5:11. Thank you so much.
buddy, good job, Victoria.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.